I want you to start by just imagining this scenario from your own perspective. You've grown up on the same street all your life. The school that you attend, you can walk to. All of your friends live on the same street as you. You live near the beach. Your father is a successful and well-respected fisherman. And it's Boxing Day. It's Thailand, it's 2004. You've had a couple of days off. Thailand doesn't celebrate Christmas or Boxing Day, although it's becoming increasingly popular as an international event. You wake up on Boxing Day, you've had a good couple of days break playing with your friends. It's just after breakfast and the first of the waves come. They destroy your house, they destroy your community, they destroy your school. Your father, two of your closest friends, and many of your neighbours are killed. You and your grandma, your brother and your sister and your mother are put into a temporary accommodation for the next 6 months. Temporary accommodation, it's not the best environment. The school that you went to can no longer be attended. You're forced to go on a bus every day for the rest of the year. It's quite a long journey now. You don't know any of the other kids in your class. You don't know the teachers. It's not an exciting time for you. It's probably about 7 or 8 months later, the government informs your mother that there is a new house for you to move into. You move back into a new house. It's very different to the house that you lived in before. It's a 2-storey house. It's literally one of hundreds of houses that look exactly the same. It's not too far from where you used to live. But all of the streets are now in a new suburb. They're long streets. The houses look the same. There's no trees. You can now walk to your school. Your school's been rebuilt and reopened. And so you've now got to readjust to a new life. You don't know any of your neighbours. All of your neighbours have been resettled from different communities up and down the coast. And so it's a bad time for you, and you're learning to adjust and to accept the change, and what does that mean for you? So I moved to Thailand shortly after the tsunami happened. I went there in early 2005 with the task of working with a number of NGOs, non-government organisations in southern Thailand. And I was sent there for 3 years to try and help rebuild the communities affected. Now, I was based in Khao Lak in Phang Nga province. Some of you may have seen the movie The Impossible that came out at Christmas time, starring Ewan McGregor and Naomi Watts. Fantastic movie about the tsunami hitting Thailand. That was filmed in Khao Lak and around the area, Tukua where we were based. My role for 3 years was very much tasked around rebuilding the communities, and I worked with the Thai government with a build back better policy. And they said we need to build back everything to a high standard so it will withstand future disasters. We rebuilt schools, we rebuilt playgrounds, health clinics, sports stadiums, all sorts of things. We worked with the government to ensure all of those infrastructure, roads, bus stops, you name it, we were building things up and down the coast. A large part of our role too was establishing a boat building industry. The main industry in southern Thailand is fishing, and all of the boats and the fishing nets, etc. were destroyed. So we established a boat building industry, trained people, and those who lost boats were able to get a new boat through that and also generate income. We established mobile medical clinics, and we had teams of doctors and psychologists going up and down the coast and talking to communities that were affected. And one of the interesting areas too that we worked in extensively was doing water and sanitation. When a tsunami moves inland up to 4 kilometres, and it did so in many places along the coast of Thailand, the salt water kills the soil. They grow a lot of pineapples and bananas, cashews and rubber trees in southern Thailand. And those plantations, the soil can be contaminated for up to 7 years with the salt water. All of the wells that the communities use for fresh drinking water were filled up with dead animals, dead people, and rotting debris. So we had to drill new wells. We drilled hundreds of wells up and down the coast and put new water systems into these communities. So that was the bulk of my work, and that was what I was tasked with doing for 3 years. A lot of the money was Australian government funds too. Very quickly, about 6 months after we arrived, teachers and parents started talking to us when we were in their communities saying, we've got a problem with young people. Young people are not coping with the disaster. They're getting really annoyed, they've got short tempers, they're not focusing at school, they're fighting in the playground, they're fighting at home, they're not talking to us. They've got no goals, no vision for the future. What can we do about it? And so we started talking to the United Nations too and saying, what are you doing in this area? What else is happening? And they said, we've actually just finalised a report. And I've printed out one of the statements from the report that we used as sort of a starting point for this. This report from the United Nations said, young people in southern Thailand are trapped by fear. They're saddened by loss, they're disillusioned about the future, or simply lacking in purpose and belief in themselves and others. So what can we do? In my previous life, before I went to Thailand, I worked in Sydney, also programming Australian government funding for overseas. And I'd visited 2 programs, one in Mongolia and one in Cambodia. And these programs were very much about adventure-based therapy, getting young people out of their comfort zone, challenging them, getting them to do things that they wouldn't normally do, getting them to ask and accept help, to trust others, to think creatively, to look at personal resilience and to try new things. So I thought, how can we try something like this in Thailand? I'd also met with Brett Lee, who sponsored the cricketer, who sponsors a program in Melbourne, and he works with at-risk young people in his spare time. And he also developed a program in the east of states in Victoria, a similar program to the one that I'll show you now. So I thought, well, if we can try some of these things, maybe that's a good starting point to engage young people in high school as a way for them to work through some of the trauma that they've experienced with the tsunami. So we went and met with the schools, and we said, you're the people that told us about these problems. Can we use the schools as a place to engage with young people? If we're going to establish a program like this, we can't do it outside of school hours because kids won't come to it. This needs to be done in school time. So we established the Bin La program. It was a 3-step program. The first step was to establish a school-based curriculum where we would employ youth psychologists to come into the schools and to work with young people. Once we'd established that, we would establish an adventure park. The adventure park was very much modelled off a high ropes course, which I'll show with some pictures of, some team building challenges, and also a bit of a Tough Mudder approach, if you're familiar with the Tough Mudder idea. And then finally we thought we need to do something that engages young people with their community. And so we then started developing some community projects. So the Bin La model was You Can Fly. Bin La is Thai for You Can Fly. They chose the name. We started talking to some of the kids and we thought, how can we do something here that they're going to get some ownership of? We established this park. We leased an acre of jungle just off the coast of Khao Lak and set up this high ropes course. It was quite a comprehensive process. It took us a while to get accreditation on it as well, and to pass the standards. The standards are a bit lower in Thailand than they are in Australia, but we still had to work through that with the Thai government. We then, once we'd established the park and had that up and running, we got our 3 youth psychologists and some school-based teams to then start working with the schools to develop some roadmaps for the futures. All the kids that came through our program had to develop a roadmap for their life. They had to say where they wanted to be, what they wanted to do when they grew up, how they would achieve that. They had to get their parents' support of it and to share it and to be able to talk about it, and so that we'd start to build some future for them. Because the teachers also were frustrated by this culture that had developed in the schools where kids were saying, we're not going to do our homework. Why do our homework? Why even come to school? Things can change so quickly. There's no future. So we had to try and start building those paths to the future again. So the teachers would get the kids and they'd all start working through some of these life mapping processes and start doing a whole lot of team building activities in the classroom. Then once that had happened, we'd take them out to the park for a whole day. And the park, the adventure park, we'd get them doing a whole lot of challenges that they'd need to do themselves, and as a group to start trusting each other. A lot of these kids were now in classroom settings that they didn't know the kids that they'd previously been in classes with, and the school systems in that area had really been remixed up and put back together again. So there's a lot of trust building, a lot of team building activities. And you can see here this one that was called the wedding ring, and they had to get this tyre up and over that pole and down the other side without it touching the pole. And about 3 stories high of kids there. Getting people through a spider's web, the whole team through the spider's web without touching the spider's web. A whole lot of activities that they'd work through together. Now, after they'd been through that program, the youth psychologist would then identify people who are most vulnerable during those activities, would talk to them, would do follow-up activities, and even go and visit with their parents at home and say, how can we work with your children, refer them to counselling, etc., to talk through some of the issues. Now finally then we said, we've got some money for each of the classes that came through our program. We want you to come up with a community program, some sort of project that will provide a benefit to your classmates or to your community that will help you fund. You come up with the ideas. Here's a program that this class did, was around replanting mangroves. So all of the mangroves that are vital, because most of the folk, as I said, in the south are fisher folk, and if there are no mangroves, the fish don't breed and there's no fish to catch. So by replanting all the mangroves, they're assuring a future for their parents' fishing livelihood. This group decided to do a clean-up day. They got a whole lot of bins and did like a local community clean-up, and then started promoting a tidy community. This group was really interesting. They said they wanted vegetables in their canteen at school. So they established a vegetable garden at their school and looked after it and provided the vegetables to their canteen. Another group, and actually a few of the groups, did an exercise program, some sort of sports and community program to get their kids and other people in the community out doing exercises. And so that's the program. We then said to the parents and the teachers and also to the kids, how do we measure the success of this program? Was it useful? It's now been 3 years since the tsunami came at the end of the program. The teachers were all very positive, saying, yes, we've seen real progress with our children. They're committed to the future, they're excited, they're engaging with each other in a much more positive environment. The parents, we had regular visits from parents to the adventure park. They're very curious to see what all the talk was, that these kids would go away and swing through trees for a day and come back and talk positively about their experiences. And then we said, what are we going to do with this program? It's coming up to 3 years now. Is there still a need for this program, or have we gone so far away from the tsunami that this is no longer an issue? And we talked to the local police, and the police have become quite interested in our program, particularly in the 3rd year. And their equivalent of the PCYC, or the Police Citizens Youth Club, they said, yes, we want to continue engaging with young people. We'd like to take over the program. So we transitioned the program to the police, trained them up on how to do all the different activities, and I'm told that they're still running the program in the south, but now it's more around issues with youth in juvenile detention, etc., rather than the tsunami-based issues, because we're heading to 10-year anniversary next year of the tsunami. So that's the snapshot of what we did in Thailand to help young people recover from the events. I think the take-home message for you today is that all of the stories that we've heard today are that. They're stories that we can share with you young people. You are the future of Australia. Disasters will continue to happen in Australia, and the more that we can do to share our stories with you young people will ensure that you're more resilient into the future. Thank you.